This is our studio audience. Hi, I'm Andrew Campo. This is for the 11:30 public address class. Nicotine is one of the most prominent drugs used across the world. Many of us either have used it ourselves or know someone who uses it frequently. Today, I'll be going over about how nicotine affects our body, each and every one of us. I'll be going over how nicotine typically enters our body, the effects it has on our body, and the neurotransmitters that are all within us, and then the benefits and risks of nicotine. Let's begin by talking about the way nicotine enters our body. Before we get to the entry, just a short little thing on nicotine. Nicotine is the main psychoactive component of tobacco, and that's the typical method of administration for the body. Nicotine is classified as a mild stimulant and is typically either inhaled via cigarette or vaporizer, or it goes through the skin by chewing tobacco or skin patch. Now, nicotine enters our body through the lungs or the skin, then it moves from there to the blood, to the brain, and then to our neurons, where you'll see its effects. Now, it only takes about 8 seconds for nicotine to reach our brain from entry. There are receptors all over our body that are affected by nicotine. They're both in the central nervous system, which include the brain and spine, and the peripheral nervous system. So the effect of nicotine, it goes throughout our entire body whenever we were to use it or someone else were to use it. Now I'll be talking about the first of our 3 neurotransmitters, dopamine. Dopamine is caused to be released when nicotine enters our system. It's associated with feelings of pleasure or reward, and it's thought that due to chronic use of nicotine that there will be higher levels of dopamine. It's thought that the relationship between nicotine and dopamine causes an addictive quality to be associated. This is because the brain will condition itself to associate nicotine with pleasure, reward, something good. Next, I'll be talking about acetylcholine, our second of our 3 neurotransmitters. Now, acetylcholine is released when nicotine enters our body and is thought to increase our ability to be attentive and our cognitive functioning, how we think, our memory, everything along those lines. The repeated use of nicotine through any method of administration causes less and less acetylcholine to be produced. Nicotine, in essence, has taken its place. So it creates this dependence that nicotine is in acetylcholine's place, and the brain cannot function unless nicotine is present now, because it's not producing the same amount of acetylcholine, which creates just another addictive quality of nicotine. Our final neurotransmitter is glutamate. Glutamate is associated with learning and memory, and the main thing that researchers have found about glutamate and its reaction to nicotine is that it's thought that due to glutamate's relationship to memory is, since nicotine releases glutamate, causes this release of this neurotransmitter, our brain creates a memory loop and learns to associate nicotine with pleasure and the good feelings that you receive when you take nicotine. Next, I'll be talking about the main part everyone's waiting for, how our body reacts to nicotine, the main effects. So there are 3 main effects of nicotine. Heart and blood pressure, heart rate and blood pressure both increase. Respiration increases, and then finally arteries narrow. These 3 are considered almost the body activating. This is why earlier in the presentation nicotine is considered to be a mild stimulant. As your heart rate goes up, your body's more activated, and as you saw with some of the neurotransmitters, increased attention, increased cognitive function, feeling good, feeling energized, which is typically associated with nicotine. Now, I'll be talking about the benefits of nicotine. So the main benefits of nicotine are improvement of short-term memory due to acetylcholine. So that increase of cognitive function and release of acetylcholine causes us to increase our memory, especially in the case of attention. And then next, there's a reduction of stress and anxiety due to the release of dopamine. Since dopamine has this pleasure and reward effect, when someone is stressed, this neurotransmitter being released can cause them to have a reduction of that stress, which also could contribute to the addictive quality. Is when you're under some sort of duress, you'll go to nicotine as a source for help. And then finally, researchers have recently found that nicotine is helpful for Parkinson's disease and can help prevent that. Why? Because of the release of dopamine in an area of the brain called the substantia nigra. This area in Parkinson's disease has dead neurons, which causes the tremors you see in Parkinson's and all the other effects. Now, with dopamine being released through that area, it keeps cells alive and can prevent massive cell death, creating this disease. Now that I've talked about the benefits, of course, I have to talk about the risks of nicotine, which many of you are probably already familiar with. Now, many of the risks of nicotine not directly come from the drug nicotine, but come from the method of administration. Cigarettes, chewing tobacco, skin patches, and all of the sorts. So the main one that has been talked about throughout the whole course of this presentation is addiction. Addiction, and then diseases such as cancer, cardiovascular problems, higher risks of stroke, and then losses of taste and smell, which is the most detrimental. All these are considered to be an effect of nicotine on our body. Today, I talked to you about the effects of nicotine on our body, how it enters, the neurotransmitters it affects, our body's response, the benefits, and the risks. I hope next time you use nicotine or see someone else use nicotine, you think about all the little effects that are going on that you can't see, but now you know are happening.
Great. Thank you, Drew.